All right, guys. We just left off class, or got out of class, and we kind of covered a lot of things that are on these videos here, and I kind of broke them down into a bunch of different segments, partly because of time, but partly also because of the way they're structured. But we want to talk a little bit now, finishing up in the late 1850s. All right, understand by 1857, like I said, with James Buchanan's presidency, America is going to experience a financial panic, and the Depression pretty much is going to hit throughout the country. All right. In the North, again, Republicans are going to become strengthened as a party because the manufacturers, workers, and farmers are all going to join together under the Republican platform. All right, those groups kind of feel that the Depression is a result of the Democrats' unsound policies. All right. Again, the effects of this depression are going to primarily be on the North and not so much on the South. All right. Then what happens in 1858, we have a gentleman named Abraham Lincoln. All right. Lincoln comes into the forefront because he's running for a congressional election in Illinois against a guy we've already talked about, Stephen Douglas. All right, very famous Democrat, Stephen Douglas, and the Lincoln-Douglas debates are one of the first most attractive, I guess is the best word to say, debates in a political history. All right, first, Lincoln is going to attack attacks on the slavery prominent. All right, he argues that if the nation didn't accept blacks, then it couldn't accept other groups, such as immigrant laborers. All right, and he kind of addresses the whole slavery issue on a human rights issue. All right, and again, he says the extension of slavery in territories would lead us to lost opportunities for betterment by poor white laborers. All right, so he addresses this slavery issue, trying to help the immigrants. So he's trying to draw the support of the immigrants by drawing on the support of the anti-slavery proponents, but also trying to get the poor white farmers. So you can really see him being a politician by addressing the slave issue with these points about human rights and white laborers and such. All right, and he gives this house divided speech where he says a house divided against itself cannot stand, and it's a little bit of a premonition, so to speak, for the Civil War, because he's saying in essence that all these different compromises is not doing anything but keeping us divided as a country, and therefore eventually it's going to turn ugly. Now, he opposes slavery, but understand Lincoln is not an abolitionist because he didn't see an easy alternative to slavery in the areas where it existed. All right, he wants to prevent the spread of slavery to territories, and he wants to trust the institution would gradually die out in areas where it existed. So if we can just stop slavery where it's at and just keep it where in its current states, eventually he felt that it would just eventually go away. Now, unfortunately, that's not always going to please anti-slavery proponents. They want it done now, and they want it done yesterday, right away. Douglas is going to win, but Lincoln's going to gain a lot of following. Eventually, the Democrats are going to lose the majority in the House, and it's going to be a split Congress where the Republicans are going to have control of the House and the Democrats are going to have control of the Senate. Stephen Douglas, in his response to the House divided speech, he comes up with what we call the Freeport Doctrine. All right, the Freeport Doctrine is, again, this idea of popular sovereignty, of letting the people decide what should go on in their state or what shouldn't go on in their state. All right. By 1859, John Brown, the anti-slavery zealot from Kansas, he's on the run from his Potawatomi massacre, and he tries to draw the support of a number of anti-slavery proponents in the North, one of them being Frederick Douglass. But Douglass doesn't see violence as a result of as the best course of action to get results. So John Brown and his sons are going to lead an attempt to capture Harper's Ferry. All right, obviously we've all heard this story. He's hoping that by capturing Harper's Ferry, he can lead a slave rebellion and therefore help bring about this war to end slavery. The uprising never occurs. John Brown is going to surrender and is going to be tried for treason by Virginia and then eventually hanged. All right, but he's actually tried in Martinsburg at the time, which is part of Virginia. Interestingly enough, the lead officer in charge that was sent to Harper's Ferry to put him down was Robert E. Lee. All right, and he actually wrote a couple of good journal entries kind of questioning Brown's attempts and efforts, and it almost gives this appearance that he himself was anti-slavery. All right, but what John Brown's raid did do is it convinced white Southerners that they could not live safely in the Union, and that they believed that the raid was supported by the Republican Party, and that the North now wanted slave insurrection. Right, so it kind of created a lot of fear in the South. Right. In 1860, in the presidential election, the Democrats are torn between Southerners and Westerners. The Southerners are going to support John C. Breckinridge, and they wanted strong endorsement of slavery. They wanted to maintain and protect slavery. The Westerners are going to support this idea of popular sovereignty, and obviously they're going to choose Stephen A. Douglas. And when we talk about Westerners, we're also talking about Northerners. It's really misdeceiving that Stephen Douglas called himself a Northern Democrat when the Republican Party is made up of Northern Democrats and Whigs. But whatever, doesn't matter. After the popular sovereignty was endorsed by the convention, Southern states walked out, and again, they're going to choose John C. Breckinridge from Kentucky. All right. Others formed a new party, the Constitutional Union, with John Bell as a candidate. And these are the Democrats who really want to remain silent regarding slavery. They want to be Democrat. They don't believe in the Republican ideals, but they don't want to make slavery an issue. All right. If Buchanan was still around, maybe they would choose him, but most people blamed him for the panic. All right. In the Republican Party, they're going to try to broaden their appeal to earn a majority in the North. All right, they fear that the South is blocking its economic interests, and so they're going to choose Abraham Lincoln as a nominee because he's kind of moderate on slavery, he's relatively obscure, and he has Western origins. So he doesn't have a strong stance with slavery. Again, not a lot of people know anything about him, which could be a good thing because they don't have a lot of bad things to say then. Okay? Lincoln is going to obviously win. Now, their platform is they're going to go for a non-extension of slavery. So this is kind of for the free soilers here. All right? They also want a protective tariff. Those are for the industrialists. They want no abridgment of rights for immigrants. Now, this is going to disappoint the Know-Nothings, but the Know-Nothings are such a small part of their party that they don't really care what they think. They want government aid to build a Pacific Railroad. They want internal improvements at federal expense, and they want to create free homesteads for the public domain. All right, for farmers. So you can see here, just in their platform, they're going to address a number of their constituents. Okay. Very popular political cartoon about 3 outs and 1 run, where Lincoln kind of shows him winning, so to speak. All right, so the results. Lincoln's going to win with a majority of electoral college votes, but only has 2/5 of the popular vote, and therefore is going to fail to win a majority in Congress. Okay, the election of Lincoln really is the final signal for many Southerners that their position in the Union is hopeless, and what we're going to have is within weeks the process of disunion is going to begin. John Crittenden of Kentucky, the Know Nothing, is going to come up with this last-ditch appeal to save the Union, where they're going to make a compromise that will address slavery, where slavery will not be extended into new territories. And it kind of goes along with part of Lincoln's plan for non-extension of slavery. But again, it's a compromise, and it's probably the last one. When you have too many compromises, eventually they're all going to fail. So December 20th, 1860, South Carolina is going to hold its convention, constitutional convention. They're going to secede the Union. All right, and you see here, eventually everybody will secede in the South. Virginia is going to be one of the last ones. Virginia, North Carolina, Tennessee. Yeah, so these parts of the northern South are going to be the last states to secede. April 12th, 1861. Most of the forts in the South are going to be vacated of federal troops. The last fort to have troops is Fort Sumter outside of Charleston, South Carolina. The Confederates are going to open fire. Robert Anderson is the commander of the fort. They're pretty much down to nothing to eat, no ammunition, and eventually he's going to have to surrender the fort because reinforcements are delayed. All right, that's it.